From pipelines to the power grid, Trump's policies have been dumped in the dustbin of history, clearing the way for a new wave of environmental justice and unity. But while we were busy watching political theater, a racist, power-hungry, climate-destroying dictator was calling the shots behind the scenes. How do I know? I just look for the red flags. The State Department website has a list of policies and issues that are most important to our country. Before January 20, one of the key issues was the China Challenge, which took you to a page called the Chinese Communist Party, Threatening Global Peace and Security. On that page were detailed reports of the CCP's predatory economic practices, military aggression, manipulative tactics, and undermining of global values. One report detailed the CCP's horrific human rights abuses, especially towards vulnerable minorities like Tibetans and Muslims, and called for the release of those unjustly persecuted.
Since 2017, the Chinese government has detained more than 1 million Uyghur and other Muslim minorities in internment camps across Xinjiang, with reports of torture and death.
Another report detailed China's environmental destruction and how it's the largest emitter of greenhouse gases, how it's responsible for nearly 30% of global plastic pollution, and how it's the top source of trash that winds up in the ocean, among other crimes. So what happened after January 20th? Where'd the China Challenge go? And more importantly, where are all the pages of detailed reports? Wouldn't the new administration want to build upon this body of research, considering climate and human rights are central to their policies? Overnight, a key threat to the United States and the entire body of evidence exposing the CCP's damage to our planet and to humanity simply vanished. Let me start by saying, I love our planet. It'd be a fool not to, don't you think? I buy organic foods, I never use chemicals, I support local farmers, I recycle, I garden, I try not to waste. Heck, I even use a battery-powered snowblower. I do the best I can. But when I fill my car or heat my home or unwrap my vegetables, I don't always have a choice. Most of us are in the same boat because whether we like it or not, we can't live without fossil fuels right now. So with this in mind, let's dig a little deeper into some of the new environmental policies, from canceling the Keystone Pipeline to fracking bans to rejoining the Paris Accord and more. Did you know that in 2019, the US became energy independent for the first time since 1957? Yes. For the first time in 60 years, we produced more energy than we used, mainly because instead of being held hostage by Middle Eastern oil barons, we're getting it here in North America, while boosting national security, creating jobs, and keeping prices down. Now hold on. This is supposed to be about the environment. Well, hear me out. You see, Middle Eastern countries don't follow the same environmental standards as us. That looks really green. And do we really need to debate whether it's more sustainable to ship oil tankers from the other side of the world versus piping it locally? Whether it's air pollution, water pollution, sound pollution, or birds and animals washed up on the shore, drenched in filthy black oil, it's pretty clear that shipping has a big footprint. So by stopping the pipeline and pulling the plug on drilling and fracking, are we really tackling a global climate issue? Or are we just moving the environmental damage somewhere else? And if you're thinking, well, hey, I'll just ride my bike or take the bus, think again. Oil prices affect way more than just the cost of filling up your car. Oil is still a key ingredient in so many of our everyday items and powers most global transport. So the more expensive oil is, the more expensive everything is, from food to medicine to clothing, you name it. So in the midst of an economic crisis, couldn't even a small increase in oil prices have a major impact on everyday Americans like you and I? If so many of us are already struggling to put food on the table, who's going to be able to afford regular products, let alone new green products? These policies don't seem friendly to the environment or the people. Who stands to benefit? Guess who's the #1 oil importer in the world? China. Now that the Keystone Pipeline project has been stopped, guess who's first in line to scoop up Canada's oil? China. And who'd be gloating the most to see US independence get taken down a notch? China. And by China, of course, I mean the CCP. Let's take it further. Have you heard of rare earth elements, REEs? They're the key ingredients for green energy tech, like wind turbines and solar panels. Well, guess who controls 95% of the world's REEs? China. So who's most likely going to benefit from the race towards green energy? You got it, China. Let that one sink in. So while we pat ourselves on the back for rejoining the Paris Accord and marching towards a green new future, the CCP will be lining their pockets with our taxpayer dollars while choking the planet to sell us more petrol-based trash, just in time for landfill. What do you imagine when you hear about the power grid going down? Flashlights and candles, perhaps a quick calculation of how much gas you'll need for the generator, if you even have one. But how about if the grid went down for a week, or a month, or even 6 months? According to former CIA Director James Woolsey, if the power grid went down for 12 months, we're talking about total devastation. We're not talking about just a regular catastrophe. According to his team's estimates, within a year or so, roughly 60 to 90% of us would no longer be here. That's how serious it is. Did you know that back in 2018, the Department of Homeland Security warned us that the US power grid is a prime target for terrorists? Could that be why Trump declared it a national emergency? Mid last year, he signed an executive order called Securing the United States Bulk Power System, which was followed by more orders specifically aimed at reducing risks posed by, guess who? The People's Republic of China. So why, on his first day in office, was Biden in such a rush to put a stop to this order? Can anyone explain this to me? Shouldn't a national security issue that poses a grave risk to our economy, our health, and our safety go beyond party politics? Wouldn't the first step towards a fair and equitable society be making sure we can all stay alive? And where would my red flag hunt be without mentioning the new ban on federal workers referring to COVID-19 as the China virus? Because apparently this is now racist. It doesn't really matter that it was a virus that came from China. That's okay with me, because I call it the CCP virus anyway. As the Roman politician Tacitus said, if you would know who controls you, see who you may not criticize. So tell me, how is it possible to bankroll the world's worst environmental terrorist while promising environmental justice? How is it possible to bow down to a slave master who makes Jim Crow look like Mother Teresa while promising social justice? And how can we even mention progress while giving power to a regime that would send us back to the Dark Ages? These new policies have more red flags than a Chinatown parade, and it's just the beginning. Is Biden working for the American people or Beijing? Wait until you meet some of the new admin's key players. They've been dipping much more than their toes into the Chinese honeypot, if you know what I mean. But for that, you'll have to wait until part 2 of this series.